Alright, we have finally managed to get a Predator 212 for our little four-wheeler here. We already put our 79cc Predator on there at the moment. It doesn't do too good, it's kind of boggy. It barely gets up to like 15 miles an hour. So I'm really curious to see how this thing does. And today's video we're going to be putting this on that. Alright, so the first thing we're going to need to do is pull the seat and body off so that isn't in our road. Alright, so we got that off. Now we're going to need to pull off the chain and the exhaust pipe. Alright, we got the exhaust and the chain off. Alright, now we need to pull off the throttle cable, fuel line, and the electrical wiring. Just turn off this fuel valve. Alright, there's that. Alright, there, I got the fuel line off and the electrical wires, but I'll have to turn off the camera and use both my hands to pull the throttle cable out of the carburetor. Alright, we got everything unhooked from the engine. Now we're gonna have to undo the motor mount bolts, and this engine should be ready to come off. Alright, I got all the motor mount bolts out, and this engine should be ready to come off. Oh yeah, torque converter bolts stripped out inside the shaft of the engine. Alright, there we go. We got the engine off. And now I need to undo these 4 bolts and pull off the torque converter and put it onto the other engine. Alright, got that torque converter off there. Let's put it on this engine. Alright, we got this part of the torque converter bolted onto the engine. Now we just gotta put the front driver pulley on. Alright, I got the torque converter all back together and put on there. And now I'm gonna try and start up the engine because I'm kind of curious to see what that torque converter looks like with the engine. Alright, so the engine won't really turn over. I'm guessing it's because this plate here is squishing into the bolts to mount the torque converter, and so it won't turn. I'm gonna pull it apart and see what's going on. And yep, just like I thought, as you can see, there's scratch marks going around when I tried turning it. So yeah, this is when it's on the crankshaft, it's pressing right up against these bolts, which causes it to not be able to turn. So I got to figure out some way to put a spacer on the crankshaft so it doesn't sit so close up against those bolts. Alright, so I made this little spacer out of some 1/8 inch sheet metal, and it goes on there pretty nicely. And when I put this other pulley on, as you can see there, we have plenty of space sitting back from those bolts, so we're not grinding into them. And these 2 pulleys sit a little better aligned with that spacer in there, so this hopefully will work. Now I'm going to try and start the engine. Alright, everything seems to be working correctly. It's not mounted down, so I don't want to rev it up very high. I guess it's time to try and fit it onto the four-wheeler. We're probably gonna have to remove the gas tank, remove the muffler, as well as the air box, just to get it down small enough to be able to fit in that frame. Got all the stuff taken off the top of the engine, and it should fit in there. Alright, I got the engine in the frame. It barely fits, And it looks like it'll also line up on the motor mounts for our 79cc engine that was on there, as you can see there. So now I just got to put some bolts in the motor mounts and work on getting that chain, the two sprockets lined up. Alright, I got the engine on it. I got it all bolted down. See there? And I got the chain on it. It's not exactly lined up like how I'd like it to be, but the frame on this foiler is kind of bent, so it just has to be like that. It still does turn over and everything just fine. I also got the exhaust put back on it, and got the air filter put on it. Hooked up the throttle cable and hooked up the fuel, and this thing should be able to start and run just fine. I just need to put the body back on it and mount down the seat, and this thing should be complete.